All right, so eventually I made it to the stage and I got to speak as well. So, would you believe it or not, before I became the moderator of this event, actually I worked all my life in the hospitality industry. I literally completed all the positions there is, I wore all the hat there is. I've been a food runner, a restaurant manager, bar manager, I've been a kitchen porter, I've been cooking food, I've been a promoter, I've worked in hotels, so I've went through the whole ladder. I had an amazing journey and I won many titles with my team. It was due to the luck as well. I started 14 years ago with an institute restaurant called LPM and I joined Koya Restaurants and I got the chance to open businesses and literally won every single title that you can win as a restaurateur. Now, even though I had a blast of running operations and I really enjoyed it, I realized at some point that the biggest impact I can make is through training. My passion and my belief, of course, developing in employees also helped a lot. But it became clear as sky to me that the most problems the industry is facing is due to the way we train employees. And we talked a lot about these past 2 days about how to market, how to cook, how to treat people. But I think the fundamental, and this is something that every restaurateur is agree on, how important training is. Now, training is, you ask anybody, they're going to say this is the most important. And it is the most important until something comes up in a real world, in a real restaurant operation. That's the plan, we train employees, and as soon as something happens, training goes in the end of the priority lane. So today, we are going to talk about training the new age workforce. So this is a twist, because I think once I figured out how to train the employees, I realized that, the workforce is changing. What are millennials? Who are these Gen Zs? So everything went to being basically what I worked on for many years and collected my knowledge about, and I realized that actually the new age workforce is a completely different beast. Now I need to start my whole work again. So today's speech is all about how to train the new age workforce. Now, we're going to cover several different topics, of course, who's the new age workforce, why the focus on training, and why we need to focus much more than ever before on focusing the new age workforce, and current trends and workforce training. So, first of all, why training matter without the millennials and without the Gen Zs? First of all, the industry suffers from one of the highest staff turnover across all industries. You ask anybody what is the number one problem in the industry, they're going to probably tell you staff turnover. People just coming and giving is like a rolling door. It is one of the very few industries that lets unskilled workforce coming into businesses. You want to be an engineer, my friend, you have to study. You want to be a lawyer, you have to study. You want to be an electrician, you have to study. You want to be a waiter, you don't have to study. You want to work in restaurants, you have 2 legs, you have 2 arms, welcome on board, right? So this is one of the very few industries that literally let anybody coming into businesses. And these guys are naturally progress, right? And in fact, 9 out of 10 managers were promoted from line staff. So again, there are all the fancy hospitality schools, right? These people are studying this and that. But if you ever worked in restaurants, you know exactly that these guys barely reach the real stage, the high stage. I worked over 20 years in restaurants. I probably worked with 2 people who coming from hospitality schools. One of them survived a month, the other one survived 2 weeks. No wonder 60% of the restaurants fall within the first year. So when we're talking about training, we're talking about survival, really. And those 40% who survive the first year, another 40% close within the first 4 years. In fact, the average lifespan of a restaurant is 4.5 years. So I'm wondering who's in front of me. I guess it's a crowd that I can divide into 2. The one running a restaurant and the other part who wants to run a restaurant. So welcome into reality. This is your reality, guys. if you think you're taking on an easy industry, if you think that it's going to be an easy ride, I have a very, very bad reality check for you. This is a tough business. It's a tough business to be in. It's physical, it's difficult. It's so many people need to do the job well for you to be profitable and you to prolong on the market. It's actually very few who can survive the industry for many, many decades, be on top. And I can tell you the most probably answer is because they do something better than others, and it is all related to the people and all related to the training you provide for them. So, as I mentioned, it's going to be a twist, not just about why training important. Everybody knows why training important. But let's talk about who is the new age workforce. What is new age, right? So we have the boomers, right? 60, 78, they most probably C-suite level directors, right? Working for big hospitality groups. You barely see them in a restaurant. You have Generation X, right? They are now 45 to 60 years old. They barely in a restaurant anymore. Then you have obviously the millennials. So this is actually right now one of the majority in restaurants. You have Gen Zs, also known as Zoomers. I guess you figured out why they're Zoomers. They probably Zoom more on their phone than they do anything else, right? And now we have Generation Alpha. I'm not even talking about that. I cannot even imagine what is going to be training Generation Alpha. I wish I would, but 2 years ago, I didn't know what is Gen Z or I didn't know what is millennials because I didn't have to. Now I really have to if I want to be successful. But the reality is that Gen Z is going to occupy 30% of the workforce by 2025. And you would think, okay, 30%, I may not come across this problem because there are another 70%. But if you ever work in a restaurant, I think you can see the demography, the young people, right? If you work above 40 in a restaurant, you almost consider that as, something is weird, right? So when you go to a restaurant, you're most probably going to be served by somebody 20, 25 years old. So actually, the Generation Z, Gen Zs and millennials, right, that 30% who is going to be the workforce by 2025 is going to be your entire market, your entire pool of getting employees from. So when we're talking about how to train Gen Z, we're talking about how to train the workforce you're going to have. Now, who are these people? The Gen Zs, the millennials, right? The new age workforce. They are definitely tech savvy. They grew up with the internet, smartphones, right? For them, social media is a standard for daily life. I hear many, many people in the industry complaining, Gen Z, millennials. I really don't like that because I think it is not their fault how they brought up. It is not their fault that this is their standard, right? If you think about 40 years ago, your parents, how different they were. A toilet outside in a garden was a standard thing, right? English toilet came in not that long ago. Toilet paper came in not that long ago. So 40 years ago, the way of living was different. They were looking at you, oh my God, you came from the moon, you want things, what are these expectations? We were already something very, very difficult to deal with. So now we're looking at millennials and Gen Zs, right? Their phone is always in their hand. It's not their fault. This is how they brought up. This is their daily standard. What else are they? They want purpose over a paycheck. So we did my company like to do a lot of client testimonials. We're following Nike's philosophy. I don't like to promote my company. I like to promote my clients who is using my platform because they do it for a reason. And during these testimonials, I ask all the employees of the company line stuff. They prefer paycheck or they prefer purpose in a company. And almost all of them said, paycheck is great, money is great, but what's my future? What am I going to get? What next for me? Nowadays, people think, how am I going to be a general manager or a head chef in 2 years' time? Maybe it's unrealistic, but this is the way they think, right? So they really want to see what's the purpose. They're socially conscious. So I never seen so many stuff complaining about having plastic straws or why we do this or why we do that. Back then, you just wanted to get a job. Nowadays, people are conscious, printing paper. That was one of the first things I wanted to tackle when I became a training manager. Stop printing paper. People laugh when they ask me why am I having my company today. One of the reasons was because people will keep putting this in my ear. You know how many trees are dying in the Amazon forest? And I took it kind of like a gentleman was speaking yesterday from the Tigers group. He took it as something that he wanted to own. I wanted to own this. I didn't want to print paper no more. And so the millennials and the Gen Zs, they really socially conscious about how global issues are unfolding. They like flexible work arrangements, right? Favor jobs that offer flexibility, blend work with their personal lives seamlessly. And I tell you what, why wouldn't they? I wish back then that was an option for me. I wish I didn't have to do 4 doubles. But back then for me, that was normal. Now it's not normal. So you can fight it, or you can accept it. You can work on solutions that allow them to work smarter and faster and spend less time at work, because that is going to be a quality time. They're also open to upskilling and reskilling. They're constantly seeking opportunities to learn new skills. They want to advance. Nowadays, apart from salary, is one of the first questions on every job interview. What are the career development opportunities? Can I complete courses? Can I get certificates? Can I learn something new? People start as a waiter. They want to shift towards the kitchen, from the kitchen to finance, from reception to be a DJ. And I see many people doing this because they're looking for themselves. And guess what? Instead of wasting away years doing something you don't like, they voice it, and they want you to give them a chance on another field, which is one of the greatest things you can get as an operator, because you can actually have somebody who's enjoying something they do. Therefore, they can generate you better guests, better revenue, more genuine service. They want regular feedback. They want to know what's up, what's going on. Am I doing my job right? They're going to come to you. They're going to ask, okay, how do we do? Back then, I was very lucky if I get a yearly appraisal. And I remember the time when I waited the entire year to speak to my manager. I was collecting, and I was, sometimes it came out, sometimes it didn't even come out. There is nothing worse when you want to do an appraisal. You wait a year to talk to your manager, and then eventually he just not going to let you speak, not going to come out. Nowadays, people want to talk. What is in their mind? They want to talk about it. They want to let you know that they're happy or they're not happy. They want career investment. As I mentioned, they want to be GMs in 2 years, and you either accept it or not. And eventually, they are aware that there are mental health problems. They are not going to hide it, and this is probably one of the best things can happen. Now, does it come with challenges? Of course, some people might abuse it, but nevertheless, our job is to make sure that people are in the right place. And if you want to run a successful business today, you want to make sure that your people are in the right place. They do their best when they are at the job. So why are we focusing on the new age workforce only? It is affecting your staff turnover. I'm going to slowly come back to money. Because when we're talking about staff turnover, when we're talking about training the new age workforce, we're talking about making your business more profitable, either your top line or your bottom line. We want to talk about give these guys the opportunity to grow, right? Give them all the tools they need to succeed in their career. And by that, giving our business the chance not to close down within 4 years, right? So if you want to keep your staff for a long time, you need to develop them. This is one of the number one. There was a study not long ago. They asked all the big hospitality brands, number one reason for people joining a job, and number one reason people leaving a job. It's the same reason, development opportunities. Number one reason why people joining companies and why people leaving companies, either the lack or the other way around, job opportunities. You want to attract top talent, let me tell you that. We talked about 14,000 restaurants in Dubai. I never seen so many restaurants opening like in the past 2 or 3 years. All the companies that we work with, opening left, right, and center. Everybody is opening a restaurant. People that know restaurant business and people don't know anything about restaurant business, but they have a passion. They want to open a restaurant. I don't know what's going on. Everybody just wants to open a restaurant. So let me ask you this. We talked about this many times during the past few days. Do you think by getting average staff members you're going to achieve something exceptional. Everybody who's sitting in this room, who ever worked with hospitality employees, whether you open up your business or you're running an operation, you want a top talent. I tell you something, especially here in Dubai, this is a great example. This is a very comfortable place to run business. It's easy to get the employees because you're providing accommodation, transportation, visa, medical, you're providing all this stuff. And I speak to a lot of clients of mine. I like to speak to line staff, even though when I go to pitch a company, I like to sit in the bar in the end and ask the bartender, how is this company? What do you think? You wouldn't believe how fast people throw the company under the bus. They just tell you really what they think, you know? And, you know, one of the number one thing is that they tell you, listen, this company doesn't offer anything special. Why would I do anything else if they don't offer me anything special? If I go for a job interview, you offer me salary, the same salary, everybody offers pretty much the same salary. The number one question, what else do I get apart from salary? Everybody giving me salary, visa. What else do I get? How am I becoming a manager in 2 years' time? Another important aspect that many tend to look over, that they can drive innovation within the company. You guys have no idea how much talent you have in your restaurants. I promise you. You know, very often we talk about, okay, AI coming into businesses, how important it is to develop content. Many restaurants struggle with content creation. One of the number one advice I would give you is ask your employees, ask your Gen Zs, ask your millennials. Hey, listen, would you be interested to generate content? Let it be training, let it be social media. You will be shocked how many people are going to provide you free content for your restaurant because they like your restaurant, they work there anyways. And there is a content creator in every single team, in every single department. There is one in every single department. So let your millennials and Gen Zs drive your social media. Let them contribute and you will be surprised. And most importantly, why are we focusing on a new age workforce? Because they are the number one deciding factor of your overall business success. They're going to make or break your business. You guys are hopefully all in high position in different restaurants and hospitality groups. I really hope. Back then I've been, you know, in the same position, and my CEO told me once that, you know, Janos, the only problem with you that when you are speaking and when you are, you know, developing your training materials or whatever, you're not making money. You're not making me any money. And he was right. I'm not making any money. It's the employee, the line employee who's going to make money for the company. As well trained they are, as much money is going to come into your businesses. So why are we focusing on that? Because they're going to make you money. You guys, I'm sorry to say, you can make a lot of smart decisions. Hopefully one is to invest more in training and employees, but the bottom line is your employees making the revenue. So I want to talk about, you know, current trends in workforce, training, and the rise of e-learning platforms. So there is obviously a lot going on. I want to share with you guys what works. I didn't come here to promote my brand. I am genuinely, you know, came here to give an informational speech about what's working in restaurants. And I would advise everybody to look into it. And one is micro-learning, bite-sized information, on-demand content. So micro-learning is basically short bite-sized information that you basically present to your employees. Back then you could ask a 100-question quiz from an employee. They had to sit through an hour training, right? The big speeches. Nowadays, the attention span of employees are extremely short. And guess why? On social media, it is designed that you constantly just, you know, swiping up and down. So you cannot focus long. So if you want to get the attention of people, you have to make sure that you're delivering small bite-sized information. Customized learning paths tailored to the individual. So it is an all-time debate, right? This is one of the questions I always ask from everybody. You got companies that delivering content to the F&B industry, right? Hundreds of courses, thousands of courses you can buy. But does that engage your employees? You definitely can tick the box, okay? Especially in hotels. People love to say, you know what, we bought this package of hospitality courses, everything is there. How to use chopping board, how soft skills, everything. And while our topics where you can get generic content, most of the times is disengaging the employees, because let it be how to make a room or how to make a coffee. The coffee is one of my favorite example. How to make a cappuccino. You would think, it's coffee and milk. But I promise you something. Go in the next 3 restaurants, ask them exactly how they do a cappuccino, and they're going to make it different every single restaurant. Where the spoon goes, where the sugar goes, double shot, single shot, what coffee, how much coffee, what's the temperature, what's the size of the cup, how do we serve, when are we recommending it. So when people see uncustomized learning paths and just, learn everything, they're not interested. You have to deliver content particularly to each position, each department. Gamification, rewards, recognition. This is where usually people get upset. Gamification, what games? We are in a restaurant, you came to work, and I give you money, you have to work. What gamification? But I tell you what, the whole point of e-learning platforms is to provide an experience that's similar to social media. At the end of the day, what you want is not fight how people are. You want to deliver them something resonates with them. You want to deliver something they're actually interested in. So if you can do that, why not? Let's do that. Mobile learning. So this is probably my favorite out of all. I share a short story with you guys. Throughout my career, I don't know, I was really crazy about training, and at some point I managed to get a training manager position for one of the companies I work for. And I got promoted within the first year because I developed actually in-house, out of hobby, my first platform, a training platform. But before I did that, and why I did that, it is because I worked 2 years to develop a department manual for every single department in a restaurant. So one manual for waiters, one manual for kitchen, one for the reception, reservation, wine, bar. If you ever seen beautiful books, they were 120 pages. They look like National Geographic. Okay, when you open it, there was a beautiful onboarding plan, map, what's going to be. So, it took me 2 years to roll out this program. Paid a lot of money for the books. They came out. They looked like $1 million. There was only one problem with them. Nobody ever read them. Nobody ever read the bloody books I wrote. So I had 2 choices really. I had to question myself, or I could just, blame it on millennials and Gen Z. So I questioned myself. Ask people, listen, what's wrong with it? They are beautiful. You never had so many beautiful SOPs and so beautifully designed. What's the problem with it? And people were basically laughing in my face. They said, Janos, all due respect, it's on paper. Who do you think reads paper? And this is where my career changed. This is where I realized that whatever I learned, how much experience I gathered over the years, is the past. I need to do something different. So I started to develop a mobile training platform. That's the only reason I'm standing here today, because people laughed at my face, and I was happy to take the information. I could blame it on them, but I realized that actually developing something that is accessible through your mobile is the future. Everything you do today is through your mobile phone. Everything. Well, almost. Learning as a benefit. So you want to attract top talent. Offer them learning benefits. They are investments, but invest this money into your business. You invest it into your employees. You can tell them, listen, if you join a company, you have $50 a year you can spend on whatever. Let it be LinkedIn courses, whatever it is. People would love it. It's a small benefit, but as long as you mention it, you will come across as a company who provide more than just salary. People are smart nowadays. Don't forget that. They don't just want your salary. They want something extra. So offer, instead of vouchers and cakes and pizza Fridays and all the nonsense, learning as a benefit. Offer a certain amount they can spend on learning courses, or better, buy it for them. Right? Let it be a learning platform. Let it be certain courses, but buy it for them. Personalization in training. So it is something I touched earlier, but it is very important to see what are the options. Okay, so what do we do? How do we take it from here? So as I mentioned, you have companies. You can buy ready-made one size fits all, off-the-shelf content, right? You have companies nowadays, you have more and more and more content. You can buy this by the hundreds, by the thousands. It costs you a lot of money, but they usually look beautiful. However, they are generic content. It's not your restaurant content, right? But if you have nothing, it's definitely better than nothing. You can develop your own content. Now, this is an entire other case. How do we get started? I mean, to be honest, if you just listen to the previous gentleman, he would tell you that, you know, how AI changed the game of developing content. The platform I work for, we never wanted to develop content, but we get a lot of requests, so we started. And I tell you what, it's extremely difficult. It has been extremely difficult until ChatGPT came out and the other platforms. Nowadays, if you want, you can develop a course within half an hour, an hour. You can develop your own training course for your own stuff based on your own standards. You just tell them what you want, and you can develop it. And there is a blend. This is what I usually recommend. You know, depends on the size of your organization, depending on your need. You can do either or both, but you definitely need to get started. So, how to develop a training program? That's probably not that easy as it sounds, but I can tell you it is very easy actually. And it comes back to basic principles of running a business. You need to do a research. You need to do a research that's either a workforce analysis, right? You can do this by yourself. So if you are an owner, if you want to run a business, you're currently running a business, please give me this favor. Go to your staff and ask them, listen, I would like to provide you some training. Would you appreciate it? I guess they're going to say yes. And ask them, what kind of training would you like to get? Where do you think you are lacking? Where do you see we are falling behind the other restaurants? I'll tell you something even better and even easier, right? You guys are all busy, I'm sure. Right? We are big restaurant owners and, you know, we have big positions. We don't have time for that. You have one person in charge of each department of your restaurant, HOD, head of department. You have a bar manager, you have a restaurant manager, you have a head chef, you have a reception manager, you have a head sommelier, whatnot. In almost every single restaurant, you have a head of department. You need to tell them, guys, what do you need? You are in charge to make this happen. And if they don't want to do it, you just ask your staff members. So your research is really about asking people, what do you think you need? Because you cannot figure it out. Some people are smart and figure it out what the restaurant needs. And probably as an owner, you have a different point of view of what do you need, right? But it is as simple as asking your HODs, asking your line staff, and basically you can action that. Another thing, I see some finance guy here. They just left. So we usually tend to say, finance, you know, we have to pay for everything. They don't have to pay for everything. But they can do a lot of stuff. I tell you something, that out of all these management reports, it took me 2 years to figure out how they work. But what I realized that the numbers are pretty much everything. You can see where you're falling behind. Are you selling enough starters? Are you selling enough water? You know, it's very simple. You calculate how many guests coming through the restaurant, and you calculate how many drinks you sell. So you can very quickly divide. So back then when I started this research, I always said that in a restaurant, in my opinion, if a guest comes in, we should sell 3 drinks. No water, 3 drinks. It can be wine, it can be Coke, it can be a cocktail. Do you think it's too high, or do you think during a 2-hour meal? Please raise your hands if you think we can sell 3 drinks. Only one. Who thinks we should sell 2 drinks? No 2 drinks? 1 drink? Only? 4? More? Okay. I always thought that we could easily sell 4 drinks. 3 or 4. When you run the numbers, I promise you, in any restaurant in Dubai, you will sell 1.2, 1.5, which is super low. The numbers will tell you, we don't sell enough cocktails, we don't sell enough wine. So we have a training that we can work on. Because eventually you want to bump up your sales. Now, the research is done. We have to implement it. So guess what? It's not going to be that difficult, because you ask your HODs, your head of departments, what kind of training you should do. They're going to tell you, trust me, they're going to fill up a list. We should do this, we should do that. They're going to give you a lot of different topics for all the departments. Ask them to make it happen. So in every restaurant I ever worked, I always made training fair. I didn't want to be the big corporate training manager. Ask every head of department, what do you think your staff need to know? and I just make sure that they're going to train their employees about this topic. You rectify the topics, and then basically you make a calendar accordingly. There is a content creator in every team, so you will be surprised how many line staff actually want to do training, not to receive training, but want to do training. All those go-getters who want to grow, they will happily volunteer to do your trainings. And use of AI changed everything, guys. You know, if you want to invest in yourself, in your business, allocate half an hour a day for 1 week on researching AI. Go on simple ChatGPT, type in a question and see how it works. Watch YouTube videos. You will realize that things open up for you. You never thought it is a possibility. Nowadays, you can do so many things with the help of AI. And it is not as scary or not as difficult as it comes across. You know, people can fight it, but again, this is coming, it's already here. There's no point to fight it, use it. So, implementing a training calendar is basically very simple. You need to ask yourself, okay, I have the topics I want to train my employees about. How many times I should do it? How often? Should I do weekly? Okay, how many topics is that? 10. So after 10 weeks, I'm done. What do I do after 10 weeks? Do I come up with different ones or just repeat it? I would recommend you to come up with 10 to 20 topics and keep repeating it, because people cannot attend your trainings all the time. One of the big difficulties with training, right? You cannot get them in the same place. So get it done. You say every Friday at 4 o'clock we do this training. You want to attend, you attend. You don't, you don't. We replicate it 4 times a year. I'm sorry, but if you don't complete it, don't be surprised if you don't get promoted. Use briefings. Briefings is, unfortunately, one of those times that's, you know, become very big time wasting for every restaurant. You're talking about sections, you're talking about, I don't know what happened. These kind of information you can share with your staff out of briefing, and so you can just put it on a board, or you can share it through a platform. Use your briefings to train employees. Make it concise. Spend 2 minutes on training employees, because this is the only time in any restaurant that employees are in the same place. If you don't train your employees during briefing, when are you going to? That's my question. One of the biggest issues with training, organizing training, is that you cannot get people in the same place. They're all in the same place during briefing. And if you burn them or if you ask them questions, trust me, they will learn. Nobody wants to burn in front of others, so they will learn. And use, obviously, success metrics. You have to be very clear on what do you expect from your managers. You have to be very clear on what do you expect from your line staff. So we work with hundreds of restaurants, and I always tell everybody that we have 2 types of clients. The one is using our platform left, right, and center, and the other one is not using it at all. The same platform, how come is it possible? What do you think the difference between a restaurant that doing trainings and doing all the right things and the one not doing it at all? The difference is the management and the message they communicate. One of the type I mentioned, the one doing training left, right, and center, they tell a new employee, listen, we have 10 courses, we have 10 SOPs or 10 quizzes or whatever it is. You have to complete it within 1 week or 1 day or 1 month. Otherwise, unfortunately, we cannot take you on board. This is something you have to do. Guess what? Employees are going to learn your SOPs, learn your basics, learn your standards. They're gonna make sure that they're passing these tests. They're gonna learn it. If you don't ask them, they're never gonna do that. Why would they? You didn't ask them. You're already paying them money. Why would they do anything extra? You have to set clear expectations. It is the same for the management team. You ask them, what training do you think your staff need? This, and that. Okay, how often you think we should be doing it? They decide, you let the decision with them, and then you tell them that, listen, it is part of your KPI now. If you don't train your employees, don't expect bonus, don't expect a lot of things. So you have to follow through on this process. Set clear expectations, involve your staff, involve your management, and then hold them accountable. So, success stories. You probably recognize some of the brands I don't want to go too long on it. Actually, I'm not going to go too long on it, but I'm sure you recognize many brands that we're working with. These are brands that invest in their employees. They believe that they're investing in their legacy, they're investing in assets. And I always say that you put money into training, you hire a training manager, you sacrifice these operational hours or these extra half an hours because it is an investment. And you have to take it this way. So I prepared a couple of key takeaways. I don't want to bore you too long. I think that was a long day enough. But what I would recommend you is to adapt and embrace technology because it is not going away. Social media is not going away. AI is not going away. The new age workforce is definitely not going away. They're just coming in. So if you think you have problems with the new age workforce, fighting a battle you're going to lose, my friends. So we have to adapt. It's us. It's us who have to adapt, not them. Create bespoke content. Create your own training content. Make sure you have a good food Bible or food description, cocktails, basic SOPs. Back then when I left my companies that I worked with, I thought we're doing okay. Now working with so many restaurants, I see how little training material is actually provided to employees. It's unbelievable. People coming into the businesses and they sent on the floor to sell items without knowing anything about the food, the service, without the concept. I see way too often restaurateurs investing crazy money on chandeliers, I don't know, chairs. The other day, a gentleman, a restaurant owner, started to explain that they have $1,000 chairs in a restaurant. Every chair is $1,000. It looked like this. I don't have a good eye for beauty, so maybe I don't recognize it, but I asked him, bring me any of your waiter and ask him what's special about this chair. Can he tell the story to the guest? They couldn't tell the story. They didn't know what I'm talking about. So why do you invest so much money into interior and appliances and God knows what, and then don't invest 20, 30 dirham a month or 100 dirham a month in your employees? You know, in hotels, there is an allocated budget to each employee, which is on average 7% of the monthly salary. So they think that, okay, we pay $1,000 for a waiter, and we allocate an extra $70 for their learning and development. You know why they do that? Because they know that for $1,000, they're going to have 2 legs and 2 arms coming to work. This guy doesn't know anything. They're clear on that they're getting an unskilled workforce, or even though he has experience, he never worked in your outlet before, and you need to constantly teach this guy something. And they know that they need to do this fast, because during this time they're learning, okay, the onboarding is 2-3 months, you're onboarding an employee. During these months, you're losing money, you're losing revenue opportunities. This guy could sell, but he doesn't sell because he needs to study. But the management never told him how long it should take. You never provided him training material. So instead of learning everything about your venue in 1 week, they take 2-3 months. So guess what? They're losing money. Set a continuous learning culture. I invite you guys, after this meeting, tell your friends, okay, I think this is the best restaurant or that one. You guys know what are the best restaurants in the world. Okay, you guys, I'm sure, I heard already the same names. I think some of them are, if not all of them, was on the previous screen. Why do you think those restaurants are there? Because they're continuously learning. It's a school. I have some clients, they call themselves as a school. This is what the employee says. When you ask about, what do you think about this restaurant? They're going to say a school. They think that one day they leave this restaurant, everything's going to be happy. And guess what? I know many restaurants that let waiters go, these waiters go, and they get restaurant manager position in other places. Why? Because it's a school. Everybody knows that this restaurant is top. Waiters becoming restaurant managers, head waiters becoming general managers in other places because they're learning. So people happy to work for even low amount of money or low position because they know that, okay, this place is going to put my career on the next level. So this is how you attract top talent. You tell them, listen, I'm actually going to invest in your learning journey. I'm going to make sure that you're going to learn here every day. And I promise you, once you leave this place, your career is going to skyrocket. So you need to set a continuous learning culture. It's up to you guys, leaders. It's up to the leaders to set this culture. The employees are not going to set that. Set clear expectations to both staff and management. I cannot emphasize this enough. KPIs, personal chats. You know, very often the CEOs sit down with employees and tell them, listen, this is what I expect. It's as simple as that. You have to set clear expectations. And if I personally can recommend you something, leave this family talk behind. If you are a big family, it is not your family, you know? And while I had many companies, they became my family. That's an action, that's a top. That's happening because they stay there for many, many years because they're doing something right, so they become your family. I'm not saying don't have a family, but don't consider them as one. I set them the right idea. This is a sport team. We are all here to make money. I want you to make as much money as possible, so my money can make as much money as possible as well. That's the right idea. And you can motivate employees through money. Let me tell you that. Leave this family story behind because people hate it. If you ask a line employee today, what they hate to hear the most is when the management tell them we are a big happy family. You know? These guys are doing an interview behind your back every other day with another family. So, you know, you need to set clear expectations. Don't hide it. Tell them, listen guys, we're going to invest in you. We want you to take this business to the next level. Get feedback, as simple as that. If you don't know what to do, I'm not asking you to ask me or ask others, ask anybody. You will be surprised how many people are willing to help you. We are all working in the restaurant industry. So ask your friends. What do you think? How do you do this? How do you do that? How do you do trainings? What do you do for trainings? People will tell you, these are not trade secrets. The key is always in execution, but you have to collect the right information and eventually measure your return on investment. Like I measured my own return on investment. I put 2 years of work into the bin. I did it absolutely for nothing. I developed these beautiful training materials. They didn't work out. So I measured, asked people, is it working out? They said, no, we're not using it. Why? They told me also, it's not fitting in my pocket. So guess what? My company is called PocketTrainer today. Because people told me, the training materials you designed is beautiful, but it's not fitting in my pocket. If you think about it, it makes sense. Who carries a training material with them during a 16 hours double shift? Do you think they carry it? No, they put it in a locker in the best case, and it's gone forever. And I'm not going to talk about these single Excel sheets and worksheets you're printing as a food description and let them to learn from Excel sheets and worksheets. So measure, ask people, is it working, is it not? And don't be too proud. If you think it's not working, change, pivot, come up with something new. The best way to get anything done is to get started. So don't hesitate to ask questions. Speaking of questions, in case anybody have a question, this is the time. Mm-hmm. The person who trains. Yeah, so if you want to measure your training, you obviously need to measure it through some sort of evaluation, right? So however you call it, quizzes, tests, what you want to do. What I did back then, I'm going to just repeat the same formula. I ask every single head of departments, what training you should do? I helped them to design the training material and made sure that the bar manager attended his own training. You know, I helped them, I created them training materials. So we repeated all the trainings 2, 3, 4 times along the year. And then twice a year. So we did two appraisal per year. And right before the appraisal, we called in all the stuff. You, my friends, sit down there. Here is a test. You had 4 chances to attend the training, and then we give them a killer test. Multiple choice, open-ended questions. So we actually measure their knowledge. And guess what? The first run after the first 6 months, it was horrible. Nobody knew anything because people didn't attend the training. And then we told them, guys, we have a yearly bonus, but you know, it's not granted. You know, it's not granted. So when you sit down with a waiter and tell them, listen, dude, you are 12 people in this department. You are 12 waiter, you are lost. Tell me, how do you feel about that? Do you think you are in the right place on the bottom of the list? All right, so I'll tell you what I'm expecting from you. I'm expecting you next time to score minimum 90% on the test. Setting clear expectations. So you have to measure a test, you have to do a test. I know it's old-fashioned and school, but I invite you guys to, if you go to, I could give you a couple of names, a couple of really, really good restaurants in the DIFC. They do tests on a monthly basis. Some of them, you agree or not, they adjust their tip system to the test. But a lot of restaurants I know do at least one evaluation per year. They call people in, school or no school. These guys are serving your guests. Do you trust them that they do their job well, or do you not? I would advise you to always question them, because they are the driving force of your business. So if you want to make sure that your staff is doing the job right, you have to test them. You have to put them on a spot. You have to ask them questions. You know, asking questions on a briefing is not going to rectify that. But if you make them do a test, the scores are there. People either know it or they don't know it. So it's a bit old school, I know, but I promise you that all the top restaurants, you know, after this I'm more happy to share you some numbers. I just interviewed a client. One restaurant has 4,500 completed courses. 4,500 completed courses within one restaurant. They designed 25 courses, not SOP. This is an SOP with a quiz in the end. 25 for each position. And the worst completion rate, it's a global brand, the worst completion rate is 96%. Most of them 98, 99, and it is only because a couple of staff leaving. So when somebody new joins, they don't have enough time to complete the test. Those are the missing percentages. So somebody clearly can do it. All right. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That would be it.